Hey YouTube, I'm here this time with a new kind of video. So I finally stopped being lazy and I have compiled all the questions that you guys have asked me in the comments on my old channel primarily about living in Australia, my move over here, and yeah. So today is a day where the boyfriend is at work. He is an airline pilot, so he is literally off in another city right now. And I kind of recently got offered a job here that I'm really excited about, but I'm still like in that weird phase where like I'm just taking care of all the paperwork and whatever and just waiting to actually start. So I'm at home just taking care of things that just need to be taken care of, and I figured this would be one of them. So I'm gonna jump right in. The first two questions are not questions I received from other people, but they're things that I want to address just to start off this telling you about being in Australia. So my first question that I wanted to address is, how did I wind up here? I wound up here because of my partner. So my boyfriend is an Australian. He's got an accent and everything. So he got offered a job here in Melbourne last October when he was living in a city called Darwin, which is in the north of Australia, and now we're living in the south of Australia, by the way. And we were talking for quite a while about where we would live. Like, we were really deciding between Australia and the US. We talked a little bit kind of about New Zealand or Canada, but it was more so like just flirting with the idea of that rather than really talking in detail about winding up there. So I don't know, maybe we will in the future. Like, he is pretty, I wouldn't say that he's like dying to move to Vancouver, but he said, you know, if we go to Canada, how would you feel about Vancouver? You know, that kind of thing. So we'll definitely see how things pan out that way. Right now we're kind of just seeing where the wind takes us. But yeah, I'm here because of my partner primarily. However, I'm also taking advantage of it because this is a great opportunity to expand my horizons. So how did I meet my partner? I get that question a lot from people in real life when I tell them about my choice to come over here. So I met Jake because, like I said, he's a pilot, and in Wichita the biggest industry there is airplane manufacturing. There's a lot of like airplane type training in Wichita, and really that's how we met. So about 2 years ago he was working as an aeromedical pilot in Darwin, and he was flying a type of Beechjet, and the only place in the world to train for that Beechjet was in Wichita, Kansas. So the first time he was there, he actually went there, I want to say Black Friday of 2015 is when he got there the first time. And a couple days later, he and I just met online, and we talked for a couple of days, and then he finally just said, you know, you're from here, you seem cool, so let's meet up somewhere, and since you know what's good here, then why don't you suggest where we go? So our first day was actually December 5th, and the reason why I remember that is because we went to a bar that was celebrating the repeal of Prohibition because it was the anniversary of that. So even though I teach English, I for the first half of college studied to be a history teacher. So that history, social studies dork still definitely is alive inside of me. So yeah, we did that, and at first it was a very carpe diem choice. I was like, how many times in your life do you go on a date with a cute Australian? Like 0, so how about I just do it once? So yeah, I did it, and it was clearly a good date. So I was like, you know, we can go out a couple more times, but like, you can't, what are you gonna do with this? You can't date an Australian. And then I did, so here I am. But yeah, that's kind of how it went. I did not have faith at first that it would go anywhere or be anything, but who knows, you know? So yeah. All right, but now I'm gonna get into questions that you guys have asked me. So Jenny H asked me, when did I move to Australia? So I left Wichita on June 4th, first thing in the morning, and I got to Melbourne local time on June 6th, pretty much first thing in the morning. So keep in mind that it's not a 2-day flight or 48-hour flight per se. The flight time, and that's factoring in like layovers and all that kind of thing, is about 24, 25 hours from here to Kansas. But you also have to factor in like time zones and stuff like that too. So yeah, that's it. So generally flights from LA to here will leave LA the last thing at night on, you know, whatever day, and then it will land in Melbourne or Sydney or wherever, or in Auckland in New Zealand, first thing in the morning 2 days later. So that's how that works out. But yeah, that's when I moved over here. So then Nicola Cujo, and by the way, if I butcher your username, I'm sorry. I still love you though. She said, how difficult was the process to move your cat over here? So if you didn't know, I did bring my little shelter pet over here. When all was said and done, she was the most expensive shelter pet in the world, I'm telling you. But that cat is my child. I would not have the heart to leave her in Wichita, so that little $20 cat has cost me quite a bit, but she's worth it because she's my baby. So the process was kind of difficult, especially because it's scary, because that's your pet, that's a being that you care about, and it was just a very bureaucratic and expensive process where you don't really get a lot of guidance with it. You kind of have to hope that you're doing it right and then just kind of do that, I guess. So basically how it worked is for cats from the US, it's a 190-day process, and 180 of those days can be completed in the US, and then once you actually arrive to Australia, that pet will be in quarantine for 10 days, as long as the pet is deemed to be healthy at the end of it, because then they can go home and be with you. So I started this process, I want to say just before Halloween of 2016, of taking her to the vet, just making sure that she had all of her vaccines and she was getting paperwork done and whatever to really start this process. So I chose my vet based off of reviews, and I also called around and said, I am doing this because I'm moving abroad. Do you have experience and are you accredited to okay animals for international travel? And he said, yes, I've done this a million times to so many other countries, so that's why I said, okay, great, so this is what we'll do. And my vet was very helpful with this move too, so yes. So yeah, rabies is not a thing here. I don't know if it was eradicated or it just never existed here or what the deal was, but I feel like I had to spend a lot of money and a lot of time proving in a lot of different ways that my pet is not a rabid beast. So, she was already good on rabies vaccines from when I had adopted her, but we just went ahead and did another one that's good for 3 years. So had her vaccinated, had to send a blood sample up to a town called Manhattan, which has a big like vet college. It's where K-State is, if you are familiar with Kansas and the Midwest. So yeah, sent up a blood sample to Manhattan, had to come back and got documentation that she's not rabid and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And she got parasite treatments. It was a very bureaucratic, expensive process for this little shelter pet. So a lot of it was that. I didn't have to take her to the vet too often, maybe once every 6 weeks or so in the beginning, but within about 6 weeks of moving over here, I was at the vet quite a bit, because you get this paper, I guess, timeline from the Australian government that tells you your window of time of when you need to do each individual thing. And yeah, toward the end, a lot of the things you have to do are within very specific days of each other. So I spent some quality time with my vet and the USDA the last 6 weeks or so that I was in Wichita. So ultimately would do it again because, you know, like I said, that is my child. That's my little shelter pet child. But I have told my partner, I know we talk about wanting dogs, cats, whatever in the future, but I said, please, no more pets until we decide permanently what country we're going to be in, because while it is worth it, that was a big pain. And he said, I totally understand, no worries. So that's kind of where we're at with animal life in our house, apartment, whatever. Okay, So Emily asked me, are you on a long or short-term visa? I also got a similar question. Oh, come on, where is it? Oh, yeah. And Kelsey Lee 07 asked me, are you in Australia permanently or just for a year? So, like I said, with where we're living right now, it's very much so we're just chasing our careers. We are just doing whatever happens. My visa that I'm on right now is a subclass 462. It's a work and holiday visa. So what that means is I can be in Australia just traveling around and working with some limitations for a year. So it expires, I believe, the 4th of June, 2017. So it is a short-term visa, but I'm actually in the process right now of starting to apply for a permanent residency visa, which will give me much more in terms of what I can do with work and rights and entitlements that I'll have here in the country. So that will be another expensive bureaucratic process, but it's something that I'm going to want to have, especially because I will want more flexibility with teaching and, you know, everything else that I do. So yeah, that's the visa I'm on right now. It's just good for a year, but moving on to more long-term things to get more flexibility here with my lifestyle. Also with my visa, I can come and go in and out of Australia just at my leisure, so that'll be nice too. Okay, and then Maria Galvin said, are you moving indefinitely? Will you miss Wichita? So like I said, indefinitely, maybe, we'll see. We'll just kind of see how it goes. But yes, I am missing Wichita. So while it's definitely not a tourist attraction, at least not really, it's no LA or Chicago or New York by any stretch of the imagination, but it's still my home. It's a part of me. It's where my family is. It's where my friends are. I got my dream job out of college. It's where, you know, my job was. So, yeah, I'm happy to be here, but I am definitely missing home, especially just kind of like nuances about home or the US in general that aren't really a thing here. Like I'm definitely missing my Sonic unsweet tea because that was like my coffee, and so I'm drinking a lot of English breakfast tea because it's basically the same thing, but there's nothing quite like that Sonic Ice, if you know what I mean. So yeah, just kind of like stuff like that, and yeah, I'm missing Wichita. So I'll actually be back in October for my best friend's wedding. He's getting married in Kansas City, but like I'll be in Wichita for about 2 weeks or so, so I am ready to indulge in those things again. Okay, next, moving on to teaching stuff. So CWC with CWC 3 Kids said, will you be teaching? And Rachel V asked, what does that mean for your teaching career? So like moving over here, what does that mean? My goal is to be teaching this upcoming school year. So in Australia, their school years run with the calendar year. So it'll start in January and end in December. So essentially how it works is students go to school for about 9 or 10 weeks and then take about a 2-week break. So there's school holidays. And do another 9-10 weeks, 2-week break, 9-10 weeks, 2-week break, like that. So because Christmas is in summer here, since it's the southern hemisphere, they have about a month or so off for Christmas, so that's like their summer break. So like I said, I'm hoping to be teaching again in January. So while I am excited about my new job, I told my employer during the interview, because she asked, are you looking to be teaching this next school year? And I said yes. So I'm really happy to be in a position where I don't have to lie about that kind of thing. I could be honest about the fact that I'm going to be looking into continuing my teaching career. So yeah. So when I'm in Wichita in October, I actually left the vast majority of my classroom stuff there because I don't really have a use for it when I'm not teaching. So I'll also be bringing that overseas, and that will be pretty heavy because of paper and books and, you know, things like that. So we'll see how moving that over here goes. But yes, I am also about to start networking and reaching out to different schools so I can do observations and really compare and contrast Australian classrooms to American classrooms so I can get a feel for what I'll be applying for and what I'm hoping to be a part of. Okay, next, Chrissy asked me, what are you burning and melting since BBW, so Bath & Body Works, is not as accessible? So there are a few Bath & Body Works stores in the country. I think there are definitely at least 3, but no more than 4. I can't remember if there's one in Brisbane or not, which is a city on the east coast of Australia. So there are 2, I think, in Sydney. There's one in the airport, actually. I think it's in the domestic terminal, though. And there is one in Melbourne. It's about an hour and a half away on transit, though, so I haven't gone to it yet. So with that in mind, even though there's technically Bath & Body Works here, it's really not accessible, and it's actually quite pricey. Even when you factor in the exchange rate, it's expensive over here. So what am I burning and melting? I am burning the last of my Bath & Body Works candles. So in March, I came over here to Melbourne for the first time, and I brought over a crate of 6 candles. I am down to my last 1.5, so I'm currently burning London Tea and Lemon, and I also have a Georgia Peach from 2016 spring packaging that I have. So I'm going through those pretty slowly. Number one, because I have a smaller apartment since I'm in a larger city now, but also I'm just trying to hang on to and appreciate my candles. I also purchased, if you saw my last channel, several clams from Sensationals and Better Homes and Gardens, but those, just like my candles, are kind of on the outs and they are about to get used up. So in the meantime, I've been looking just for, not like vendor wax, but like local soy wax. I'm actually going to go to a shopping center later on today that I know for a fact has wax melts at kind of like a craft store that I'll be looking at. So that's kind of what I'm getting into, but when I'm back home in October, I'll be purchasing quite a bit of wax too. Okay, so Chrissy also asked, are there a lot of options for burning and melting wax in Australia? Compared to what we're used to in the States, no, but it's still okay. So just in general, in Australia, and I've noticed this in my travels too, like in Europe, there's a definite difference, and I think this is the biggest difference between US and like everywhere else that I've been. In the US, there is absolutely a culture of really convenient things and lots of varieties of things that you can get in. On a level, I think that's really awesome. It's actually something that I really miss here, but I think I just miss it because I'm very used to it. Whereas here, you have to do a little bit more searching for what you want. Big box stores certainly still exist here. Like, Australians are like weirdly into Kmart. Like, they're everywhere here. So you got Kmart. I think there's like one Target, at least one that I know of, in Melbourne, but they really tend to stay away from like the Walmart type thing. And so you don't really have a lot of options that so yeah, just a definite difference in the options that we're used to and whatever. But, you know, as long as you plan ahead, then really you're okay. So I haven't checked out the vendor wax market here because I really haven't even gotten into that in the States, but I'm sure that one exists, especially on like Etsy or something like that. Okay, and then finally, Rather Like Hearts asked me, is Yankee available there? So I'm not going to say definitely no because I don't know that for a fact. However, I will say that I have not seen a Yankee product here. So maybe in some like souvenir shops or like boutiques or whatever, maybe, but I have not seen anything here. So while I like Yankee, especially on cold, I generally don't buy anything besides votives, tarts, and car jars from there. Or not the car jars, but like the fragrance spheres that go in your car or in your closet or whatever. But so on that level, there's a lot of stuff I don't buy from Yankee, but I do love their fragrances, so I am kind of missing them too. And I'll be going there in October as well when I'm in Kansas. So, yeah, that's it. Like I've said, if you guys have any questions in the future, feel free to ask me anytime in the comments. And if I get several of them, like I do here, then I'll make a second video about it. And then if I only get like 1 or 2, I'll just reply back to you. So with that, please like, comment, subscribe, and I will have empties videos for beauty, wax, and Bath & Body Works for the months of August, so stay tuned for that, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.